اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك ونبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله، يا إمام الرحمة يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين، يا ولي بن أبي طالب، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء يا بنت محمد، يا قرة عين الرسول، يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيهة عند الله، اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي، أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا حسين بن علي، أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين، يا زين العابدين، يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد يا جعفر بن محمد أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا موسى بن جعفر أيها الكاظم يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الهادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائم المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله. Ask for your hajat from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وعدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله واستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين. اللهم صل لأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Khatamin nabiyyina bil qasim Muhammad. وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الذين يؤذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وأعد لهم عذابا مهينا. والذين يؤذون المؤمنين والمؤمنات بغير ما اكتسبوا فقد احتملوا بهتانا وإثما مبينا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Tuesday night program with this dua tawassul. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to, in the bargah of Sayyid al-Shuhada in this month of Muharram al-Haram, to accept our ibadat, our amal, our azab, our majalis, our marasi, our matam, and everything that we do in order to commemorate the gham of Sayyid al-Shuhada, and of course the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada, his ashab, his al, his family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to be able to commemorate the azah of Sayyid al-Shuhada in the way that it pleases him as well, inshallah. Before the beginning of Ayyam Azah, on Tuesday nights we were discussing Surah Al-Ahzab. Of course, Surah Al-Ahzab was discussed in the month of Ramadan, and because of the length of the surah we were not able to conclude it, and so I decided to continue with the tafsir of it until inshallah we finish with the surah. I recited these ayat number 57 and 58 for you. Just to recap, the last time around, the famous ayat number 57 was recited from the surah, that ayat which I'm sure all of you know, which talks about Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu salluna ala nabi ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima Allahumma salli. And under that ayat we talked about the importance of durood. We talked about how different benefits that are associated with this, and this is the way Rasulullah had taught us how to send salutations onto him. While Quran talks about sending salutations on Rasulullah then teaches us how to send salutations onto him. He said just sending salam and salawat on me is not enough, rather you need to include my al in it as well. And that's how Rasulullah had taught us, and we talked about it in depth and detail. These two ayat, number 57 and 58, then talk about something different from the previous discussion. Both of these ayat are related, as they both discuss things in a hierarchy. Meaning, if you look at a pyramid, you have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on top, then you have Rasul, you have Aimma Athar, and then you have Mu'mineen. And then you have rest of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In that sort of pyramid, this is how the discussion will be. That how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers himself, and then Prophet, Aimma Athar, and then of course the rest of the mu'mineen. The ayat begins like this: Inna alladhina yu'udhuna Allah wa rasulahu. Those who annoy God and his messenger. Now the word yu'udhun from adhiyat, we use the word in Urdu as well, in Farsi as well. Adha yu'dhi is in Arabic, could translate into a variety of different ways in English. One of the translations that this translator of Quran has used is the word annoy. So when someone does aziyat to you, meaning they're annoying you. Another translation of the word aziyat could be harming. When you do aziyat to someone, meaning you are harming. And more than likely in Urdu, when the word aziyat is used, it is in the meaning of not just annoying someone, rather it is in the meaning of harming someone, causing some sort of physical harm. It could also refer to harassment, that someone who does the ta'adiyah of another individual or does the adiyat of another individual, it means they are harassing them. So you can use all these different meanings. The word annoy, the word harass, the word harm, all these could be used in this regard. But when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it'll be very difficult to go ahead and say that, anyone can harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, the better translation would be that those who annoy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who annoy His Prophet. So He says, those who annoy God and His Messenger will be condemned by God in this life and in the life to come. الذين يؤذون الله ورسوله لعنهم الله في الدنيا والآخرة وأعد لهم عذابا مهينا. Not only that they are, cursed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the la'nat of Allah is upon them, but they will be the recipient of what? عذابا مهينا, a humiliating torment. The next ayat then lowers the grade, talks about وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ بِغَيْرِ مَكْتَسَبُوا فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. Those who annoy the believing men and women. So the first ayah talked about those who annoy Allah and the Prophet. This ayah talks about those who annoy mu'mineen and mu'minat without a reason, meaning there's nothing, because there could be a valid reason for you to, harass someone. Could be a valid reason for you to harm someone. Could be a valid reason for you to annoy someone. For example, law enforcement agencies, when they apprehend a criminal, they have the right to go ahead and question that person. That person might turn around and say, why are you harassing me? Why are you annoying me? Why are you harming me? Well, because of the crime that you are, for example, alleged have done it. So therefore, the questioning done. So here it says, بِغَيْرِ مَكْتَسَبُوا. If someone annoys mu'mineen and mu'minat without a valid reason, meaning there's no reason. There's no, they're not criminals and there's nothing upon them and you're just annoying them out of nothing. What will happen to this person? فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا وَإِثْمًا مُبِينًا. They will bear the sin for a false accusation and a manifesting offense. Indeed, that is also a big crime. So let's decipher these ayat. Let's look into as to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking about it in the next, I got a lot of time, I guess. Today namaz is at 8:31, huh? Let's see. Namaz time. 8:31? Yes. Okay. So I got about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and inshallah I'll conclude with that. So the translation that I had for you, to cause harm to Allah. My question is, can anyone cause harm to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is it possible to harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So therefore this translation would not be fitting. To annoy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is there a possibility to annoy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Even that is a question. Can anyone ever, like for example, when you use the word annoying, is that, now there's a fly which is flying around over here around me, that's annoying me, right? I don't know where this fly got in here from, and it's just annoying me, it's just buzzing around me. So that's annoyance. Can that happen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, of course not. Can anyone subjugate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to some bodily harm? No, Allah does not have a body. Can someone harass Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So none of these things hold any meaning in regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, right away for Rasul, all of these hold meaning. People can annoy Rasulullah, people can harm Rasulullah, people can harass Rasulullah, and they have done it in the life of Rasulullah. During the last 23 years of his life, he was annoyed, he was harassed, and he was harmed, right? All of that is true for Rasulullah. Can people harm, annoy, and harass mu'mineen and mu'minat? Absolutely. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't make sense. So this implies two things. Number one, that Allah should be disobeyed, that an attitude of disbelief and shirk and atheism be adopted with regard to Him, and things made unlawful by Him be made lawful. If that was to happen, that would annoy Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any type of disobedience, not that it is causing any pain to Him. So let me just clarify. If someone annoys me, they cause some sort of pain to me. They cause some sort of discomfort to me. I become agitated. right? Allah does not become agitated. Allah does not become annoyed in that sense. But if anyone disobeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it generates the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being generated due to this misaction, misconduct, that is considered to be annoying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's no other way of, really explaining this ayat. So if Allah was disobeyed, an attitude of disbelief and shirk and atheism is adopted, for example, with regard to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and things were made lawful, those who are deemed unlawful by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is what? That is harming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In fact, there's a very beautiful reference that is made in a riwayat that the ahkam are the namus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Namus means honor, right? For example, we call our mothers are our namus. Our spouse are our namus. Our daughters are our namus, right? They are our honor. Usually in Urdu, the word namus is used for, your female family members. In fact, could also apply to the male family members. Whoever is your honor and respected and integrity. So if someone interferes and someone interjects and speaks ill of your namus, you take reaction, you take action against that person. Riwayat says, the ahkam are the namus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning if they are not performed, it is as if you are accessing and dishonoring the namus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine someone was walking around and said something derogatory toward your mother, toward your wife, towards your daughter. Imagine. That is where you take, actions into your hands and say, well, this is not right, this is haram, you should not do that. It hits you, right? Aside from it being wrong, it affects you because of your connection with these family members. So Riwayah says, the ahkam are the namus of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If they are disobeyed, Allah is annoyed by that. Number two, that His messenger, if he's troubled, for just as obedience to the messenger is obedience to Allah, so is the opposition and disobedience to the messenger is also the disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If that was to happen, that would annoy Allah and that would annoy Rasulullah. Therefore, harming Allah means doing things that are against His demands and His satisfaction. कोई भी अमल जो अल्लाह के रज़ायत के खिलाफ जाए, anything that dissatisfies Him is something considered to be annoying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which would have resulted in gaining His mercy. Instead, it entails the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because it's entailing the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this means it is annoying. Perhaps the meaning of tormenting God, because you can use also annoying, harming, harassing, and tormenting. Tormenting God is the torment of God's servant, such as lending money to a servant, which is lending to God, and in the meaning of tormenting the Prophet is denying, or for example, slandering, and treating him rudely and tormenting his family. As it is mentioned in many narrations from the noble Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, that he said, Fatimatu bad'atum minni, faman aghdabaha aghdabani. That it says Fatima is part of me, and whoever angers Fatima angers me. So sometimes you are not directly the subject of annoyance. Someone else is annoyed, in result you are annoyed. You see how Rasulullah is saying, if whoever does aziyat to Fatima, indeed has harmed me. This is in Bukhari as well as in Sahih Muslim. So annoying Ahl Bayt is annoying the Prophet. Prophet said, after this verse was revealed, regarding both Janab Fatima Zahra and as well as Amirul Mu'mineen on separate occasions. Regarding Fatima Zahra, he said, Man azaha, whoever harmed her, fi hayati, in my life, kaman azaha ba'da mauti. It's similar to someone who harmed her after my death. So meaning, if I'm alive and you harm her, And if I'm dead, you harm her, it is the same. وَمَنْ آذَاهَا بَعْدَ مَوْتِي, and whoever harms her, annoys her after my death, كَمَنْ آذَاهَا فِي حَيَاتِي, it is as if someone who has harmed me, while I was alive. So the question is, why both ways? Well, sometimes you have respect of certain individual which stops you from doing certain things. So if a child sees that father is here or an elderly here, they will refrain from committing something mischief. But as soon as they see that no one is watching, they might do something mischievous. Same thing over here. Rasulullah is mentioning that if I was not around and you harm my daughter, it is as if you've harmed me. And if I was around and you harmed my daughter, that would actually be even worse, because you did not care for my existence and my wujud. And then Rasulullah then added, Man adaha faqad adani, wa man adani faqad adallah. Whoever annoyed Fatima, indeed annoyed me. And whoever annoyed me, indeed annoyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regards to Amir al-Mu'mineen, Rasulullah said, Ya Ali, man adha sha'ratan minka faqad adani. Whoever harmed one hair from you, indeed has harmed me. وَمَنْ آذَانِي فَقَدْ آذَى اللَّهِ. And whoever harmed me and annoyed me and harassed me, it is indeed who has harmed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَعَلَيْهِ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ. And therefore the curse and the la'nat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon such an individual. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma. Some of the messages that we can derive from this ayat. Number one, an obedient servant can reach the place where annoying him becomes annoying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allahu Akbar. Look at the respect for a mu'min. That you can attain such a maqam that when someone harms you, it is as if they are harming God Almighty. You have that maqam. So be careful next time when you're meeting mu'mineen, next time when you're interacting with mu'mineen, next time your interaction with them, that it should not result in annoying them. It should not result in harassing them. It should not result in any sort of bodily, physical, mental, spiritual, financial, you name it. None of those harms should be or would be permissible if anyone was to do it. That is directly harming Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When a mu'min, his hat ki hurmat is done. Number two, some of the punishments of slandering and belittling, annoying and harming Ahl Iman are given, the punishments are given in this world. So when you do this, cause this harm to another individual, those who are Ahl Iman, those who are believers, if you cause this, then Allah has this adab for you in the hereafter. But some of the adab could be given in this life. As the ayah says what? لَعَنَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will punish them in this world. And of course, in the hereafter, there's adabun muhina. Third message that we derive from it is, since the purpose of this annoyance is to cause disgrace to other, the punishment is also disgrace in the hereafter. Adaban muhina. Muhin comes from this, disgrace. The next ayat that we discussed is ayat number 58, which says, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْذُونَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ وَالْمُؤْمِنَاتِ. Those who harm the mu'mineen, the believers, and the believing women, without a reason, will bear the sin of a false accusation and a manifest offense. So here we see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, although it is referring to mu'mineen and mu'minat, this is lower than harming Allah and His Rasul and His Apostle and Ahlul Bayt, but it still is a big deal. It says this verse determines the definition of slander. It is to ascribe a fault to a person which he does not have. When you slander someone, you are associating something with that person which they don't possess. They do not have it. You are slandering him. The word slandering means that you are saying something to them which they do not possess, they do not carry. Or an error which he has not committed. You're saying so and so has done this. How easily, quickly we go ahead and we say, we associate, ascribe false things to people without taking any consideration. It says this is something which is considered to be slander. the Prophet of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, explained this, that when he was asked about what is ghibat, backbiting, he replied, it is to make mention of your brother in a manner derogatory to him. Ghibat is simply that. That when you speak of someone behind their back, which if you were to say it on their face, they would not like. So if this was true, it still is haram. If this was false, then aside from it being a ghibat, it is also what? Slander. So there are two ends of it. At one point, this person has that, wrong habit, bad habit. You mention that bad habit in the company of others. He doesn't want you to mentioning this. He doesn't want that to be revealed in front of the people. But at one point, he doesn't have that error, or he doesn't have that fault in him. You go ahead and make it up, false accusation. That adds on to your adab, that it is a ghibat and it is a slander. The questioner said, and if the fault is there in my brother, Rasulullah replied, if the fault that you mention is there in him, you backbite him. If it is not there, you slandered him. These are directly from the words of Rasulullah. Such an act is not only a moral sin, which will entail punishment in the hereafter, but this verse also requires that also in the law of an Islamic state, false allegation should be held as culpable offense. That anyone who merely associates false accusations towards someone, they should also be held accountable. They should not be roaming around, slandering people and associating things which people do not possess. What happens then? Because if the person is allowed and they're not stopped like that, then it'll be very easy to call out on people, to slander people, to degrade people, to disgrace them, and disgracing someone is disgracing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we made the connection before. So, in any type of bodily harm, retribution is allowed. Punishment of the same is permissible. So if someone causes a bodily harm to another individual, law enforcement agencies have the ability to go ahead and do the same thing. وَالْعَيْنُ بِالْعَيْنِ وَالْأَنْفُ بِالْأَنْفِ وَالْأُذْنُ بِالْأُذْنِ وَالسِّنُّ بِالسِّنِّ. This is even in the Old Testament. However, we do not have orders to reciprocate in the case of emotional and reputational injuries. When someone, emotionally, from the emotional aspect, tries to go ahead and, lower someone. The Quran does not say that if someone slanders you, you should slander him. So if someone came and caused some sort of bodily harm to me, the retribution is there. But if someone came and uttered something ill toward me, called me some names, called me, associated me with something haram, for example, ridiculed me or mocked me, Islam does not say, well, you have the right to go ahead and reciprocate. You have the right to go ahead and counter that. You have the right to go ahead and say the same things to them again. Someone comes up to me and calls me a liar, I do not have the right to go ahead and call them the same thing. I give an example of liar, but for example, someone comes and gives me, associates something even more, far more worse than that. Someone calls me someone who slanders others, for example. Someone who backbites, for example, right? Someone who is envious of others, for example. Someone who hasad of someone else. Someone associate those things to me. In return, I say, oh, you are also, a slanderer. You are also, for example, a liar. You are also, for example, a backbiter. You are also, for example, do this. No, I don't have the right to do that because Islam has not given me that permission. Bodily harm can be reciprocated, but the emotional and these association are not permissible in Islam. Of course, if someone does slander you, there's someone has to. The Quran does not say that if someone slanders you, you should slander him, but it warns the sinner, the person who's sinning, that he will be punished by the hakim if they were proven like that. The important point in this ayat was بِغَيْرِ مَكْتَسَبُوا, that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying mu'mineen and mu'minat cannot be harmed without a reason. If there was a reason, Meaning, if they had committed a crime, if they had, for example, done something wrong, which is criminal in the eyes of the law, then of course, the punishment can be given to them by the law enforcement agencies. From this sentence, we can deduce that harassing a criminal Muslim has no obstacle within the framework of the divine law. So if there's a criminal Muslim, and there are many, that person can be punished, that person can be harmed. If a person insults another mu'min for some money-related disputes, so there's two people who are, for example, doing business, and in business, they have some sort of dispute. This person has, for example, taken money and is not returning, for example. Something of that. Or promised to return the money by this time and, for example, is not. He has indeed committed a major sin. This is also a major sin. Be careful. When you borrow from someone, when you lend someone, when you make promises, when you have uqud and uhud and covenants, fulfill your covenants. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, ufu bil uqud. O those who believe, fulfill your covenants with each other. Now, of course, if I said, okay, if you don't have it, you can give me, for example, 5 months later, 6 months later, a year later, I can go ahead and extend that. But if that person persists on not giving, that is itself is a major sin in Islam. And if he insults a mu'min due to his faith, it is as if he has insulted the Prophet, since he has undermined the reality of religion, and this sin is also expanded to annoying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at one point I took someone's money, I did not return it, that is a sin. I don't need to explain the law regarding that. And then I caused some annoyance to someone based on their faith and their religion. That is annoying Rasulullah because he's the one who brought this deen, and that is annoying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, killing a Muslim or killing a mu'min or taking life of another individual, that has another level altogether. So there are two types of ayat in Quran. One is in regards to all the people in general. Man qatalan, I don't want to make a mistake in the ayat. فَكَأَنَّمَا قَتَلَ النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. Man qatala nafsa bighayri nafsin. I think the ayat starts like that. Whoever takes a soul without, a reason behind it, meaning the person was not criminal. It is as if he has taken or destroyed all of humanity. Man qatala nasa jami'a. It is as if he has killed all of mankind by taking one life. وَمَنْ أَحْيَاهَا فَقَدْ أَحْيَا النَّاسَ جَمِيعًا. And if someone spares someone's life or saves a life, it is as if he has saved the entire humanity. That is in regards to all of mankind mentioned in Quran. But then of course we know the mu'min is above all the people, all the creation, and then mu'min has a separate status. So it says in Surah Nisa 93, وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمُ خَالِدًا فِيهَا وَغَضِبَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَلَعَنَهُ وَأَعَدَّ لَهُ عَذَابًا عَظِيمًا. But whoever kills a believer intentionally is the key over here. If this was done unintentionally, for example, I was driving the car and I hit a moment out here in the driveway, out here in the road, for example, in our parking lot, for example. It was rush, it was so much traffic, I couldn't see right at the night time, I was backing out and I hit another mu'min. And God forbid, it was a fatal blow. That person died. This is not muta'ammid. Even the law of the land does not hold me accountable because I am allowed to drive the car. Yes, if I didn't have the license and if I hit someone and if that person dies, then I'm a criminal. Because you should not be behind the wheels because you don't have a license. Because the state trusts me with driving and I make a mistake like this, then I'm not held accountable. But Allah says, وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا. No, the story of if you do take someone's life by mistake, the indemnity, the blood money is still there. So that is a separate story. It says, وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا فَجَزَاؤُهُ جَهَنَّمْ. But whoever kills a believer intentionally, his recompense is hell, wherein he will abide eternally. So there's no shafa'at for that person. You think, well, that person will have shafa'at? This ayat alone proves those who are the killers of Imam Hussein that they will suffer in Jahannam forever. This ayat number 93 of Surah Nisa. وَمَنْ يَقْتُلْ مُؤْمِنًا مُتَعَمِّدًا. Now tell me this. Those present in Karbala, are they not mu'min? Imam Hussein and his companions, are they not mu'min? If they are not mu'min, then who is? Forget everyone else. Imam Hussein, is he not a mu'min? Of course. He's Amirul Mu'min. Of course he's mu'min. He's mu'min. And those who are standing in front of him, Umar Asad, Shimr al-Joshan, and the one who's calling the shots, Ibn Ziyad, and the one who's his boss, Yazid ibn Muawiyah, they're all in line. Hypothetically speaking, Yazid did not kill Imam Hussein with his own hands. But that is like I hired someone to go ahead and take life of another individual. So well, that person killed him. I didn't kill him. Well, you hired. You paid for the person to take that person's life. That means you are equally involved. So this ayah says, whoever takes a life of another mu'min, and Yazid was adamant about it. This was all intentional. This was not by mistake. Imam gave them enough opportunity that look who I am. You don't want to do this. You don't want to be. Imam should be discussed in the previous ayat. Harming, annoying, harassment. Here we're talking about killing. And then people go ahead and say, well, Yazid died a Muslim. So he must have done tawbah and his tawbah is accepted. Similar discussion is done in regards to Muawiyah and as well as, one of the al-Mu'mineen who stood up against Amirul Mu'mineen in the battle of Jamal. So well, they made a mistake. They all agree that going to Jamal against Amirul Mu'mineen was a mistake. Fighting against Amirul Mu'mineen in the battle of Siffin was a mistake by Muawiyah. But they, did tawbah. So their account is open, closed, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives them. That's how they try to justify. Look at the ayat. Ayat says, whoever kills a believer intentionally, his recompense is hell, wherein he will abide eternally, meaning there's no shafaat for that person. No one can come and intercede on the behalf of that person. Even if that person to go ahead and do whatever. It says, and Allah has become angry with him and has cursed him and has prepared a great torment and punishment. It doesn't get any more severe than what it is. The messages that we can derive from it, inshallah, I'll conclude. Number one, insisting on sin increases its ugliness and punishment. Yudhuna is a sign of continuation and insisting upon harassment. This is about harassment, but all of the other sins are the same way. If someone insists, persistence in minor sins is actually a major sin. If you continuously do a minor sin, you're actually committing a major sin. Number two, respecting the reputation of believing men and women and harming it is a great sin. Maintaining honor has nothing to do with being a woman or a man. Allah says, mu'mineen and mu'minat. So you don't get confused. Some of the places Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all of them with one word, mu'mineen. Innamal mu'minuna ikhwa. Or innamal mu'minuna alladhina amanu billahi wa rasulih. Mu'min is someone who believes in Allah and His Prophet. You think this ayat is talking about only male mu'mineen? No. It includes male and females. But Allah uses the masculine pronoun towards it. The masculine word, al-mu'minun. But in this ayat, Allah mentions mu'minun along with mu'minat separately so that nobody has any doubt. That has nothing to do with the gender of the individual. A sin is punishable if a person commits it knowingly and intentionally. Remember the ayat says, muta'ammidan. That is why the punishment of a scholar is more than that of an ignorant in Islam. Rather, the ayat says, maktasabu. A scholar's punishment, I've mentioned this before, is before an ignorant. Remember the hadith which says 70 ignorant will be forgiven before one alim is forgiven. Allah will forgive 70 juhala and ignorant before He forgives one alim. Why? So, for example, one Jahil came towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and says, Jahil meaning what? He said, I did not know this was haram. I did not know drinking alcohol was haram. Allah will forgive him. I did not know, for example, adultery was haram. Allah will forgive him. I did not know consuming pork was haram. Allah will forgive him. I did not know backbiting was haram. Allah will forgive him. I did not know this was haram, this was haram, this was haram. Allah will keep on forgiving. Up to 70 juhala. An alim will come. He committed haram. Not accepted. Not accepted. Not accepted. Not accepted. 70 juhala will be given reprieve, but one alim will not. Because of the knowledge that you possess. You committed this act with intention and with wholehearted knowledge that you possessed about it. So, well, that's a difficult thing. Shouldn't we all just remain jahil then? Shouldn't we all just remain ignorant then? You hear this, ignorance is a bliss. Meaning what? If I remain ignorant, then I have an easy way out over there. That's what the misal is giving us, right? That means let me just remain ignorant in the world, Allah will forgive me. True. But now on the contrary, when Rasulullah mentions the maqam of a scholar, that yes, that jahil is given reprieve and has entered paradise. But when an alim who has not done anything, given paradise, the maqam in paradise will be incomparable to the person who is jahil. So look at the positive side of it as well. Let me bring you to a close. Sin makes man's burden heavy. فَقَدْ احْتَمَلُوا بُهْتَانًا مُبِينًا إِثْمًا مُبِينًا. The worst of the harassment is with speech and slander. If my memory serves me, if I can remember, it says, جِرَحَاتُ السِّنَانِ لَهَا الْتِيَامِ مَا جَرَحَ اللِّسَانِ لَا يَلْتَامِ. I think something like that. جِرَحَاتُ السِّنَانِ, or the wounds that are caused by your tongue, does not have any, cure. The wounds that are caused by, rather, jirahatu sinan. Sinan is arrow or spear or any type of weapon. The wounds that are caused by a weapon can be cured, right? Someone got hit, they can go to the hospital, they can be cured. But the wounds that are caused by a tongue, lisan, there's no curing that. That affects and that remains. That wound will heal that is on your hand, but the wound that has struck your heart and mind, that does not heal that easily. Harassing others in any way or any form is one of the sins that incurs God's wrath upon the people. Of course, that's why we remember that one of the reasons we curse these people in our ziyarat, in our ziyarat Ashura, ziyarat Waritha, you hear the la'ana upon certain individuals because they caused harm to the family of Rasulullah. Not only they caused bodily harm, but the words that in these ayyam, when Ahl Haram are in Kufa and Ibn Ziyad Mal'oon, not necessarily causing any bodily harm to Zainab or Kulthum or other family members that are captives, but he's definitely causing harm through his tongue. When he says words like this, that to Zainab Salamullah alayha, that look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has disgraced you. Look how he disgraced your brother and took his life. Using such words is definitely harmful, has an impact. But Janab Zainab Salamullah alayha responds by saying, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila. I see nothing in what has happened to us in Karbala. I see nothing, the harm that was caused to us in Karbala. Because Allah was watching, I don't see anything except beauty in it. That's why Imam Hussein, when he was carrying his 6-month-old, Ali Asghar, Imam ﷺ, riwayat mentioned, it was easier to carry the body of Qasim, to carry the body of Ali al-Akbar, to carry the body of Abbas, to carry the body of Aun and Muhammad, but it was much, much more difficult to carry than 6-month-old Ali Asghar. 6-month-old Ali Asghar was not heavier than the previous names that I mentioned, but 6-month-old was butchered in a way and killed in a way with an arrow, which is 3-pronged arrow that strikes into the neck of Ali Asghar. The arrow was longer in size than the size of Hazrat Ali Asghar. And therefore Imam went through with this difficulty, which is unimaginable, but Imam uttered one word. He said what? He said that this is hawwan alayya bima nazala bi. This is easy for me, meaning giving the sacrifice of my 6-month-old. This is easy for me. Why? بِأَنَّهُ بِعَيْنِ اللَّهِ. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. Because Allah is nazir on the zulm that is being done upon me, I can easily go through with this, Allah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I can easily go through with this difficulty in my life. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to follow the commands and the teachings of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of our awaited Imam and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allahumma salli.